this video, I'll show you all the techniques that you need to know in order to make a preformed pond liner with very obvious plastic edges disappear. It's magic.
Ho, 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 it's magic.
There's two simple rules to make a man-made plastic smooth item disappear, and those are chaos and layers. So there's beauty in chaos. Nature is chaos. It's not so much about hiding every square inch of plastic liner as it is about drawing your eye's attention away from this smooth man-made object. The wall over here doesn't stick out as much. Even this little corner over here doesn't stick out. But then once you get over here, now you can see the liner again. So there's a few techniques that I use to really help hide the liner. One is do not try and cover the liner with rocks all the way around. That looks awful and everyone knows exactly what you're doing, right? It doesn't look natural, it doesn't look like what nature intended. So I instead will try and find a rock that has an overhang. So this big one kind of has a jagged underside. So I have part of it overhanging, and then behind it, I came back, I plugged another rock, and then I have another rock touching that one and coming back up and connecting with the liner. So I'm creating a pocket, right? Now that's dirt, there's a liner there. Now in here on the pond side, I've got one of the cobble rocks that kind of matches with this plant shelf, and this piece of wood that I have that almost perfectly works with the shape of the liner. Now instead of it being just a line of rocks, now I have this plant pocket. So if I were to take this piece of grass and shove it in here, now this piece of grass isn't grown in, right? It's a pretty small one, tore it up in the middle of winter. It hasn't had a chance to grow in the spring yet, but immediately that liner disappears. This type of grass gets to about 12 inches tall and spills over. So it'll end up spilling over the edge here, hiding this sharp edge here, and spilling out here. And where's the liner? It's gone. Disappeared. Poof. Right? I plan on putting another bit of grass there. Right? Again, you see my big rock overhanging the edge, but then at an angle coming away from the pond, and then the same big rock that I was using for this one, creating another plant pocket. Now this one's smaller, I'm not going to be able to do as big of a grass ball as I did here, but I've got some small mondo grass. That's 10 individual pieces of mondo grass, so I'll take like 2 or 3 at a time and stick them places. But I was thinking I was going to put some of that there. Ultimately, I want to be able to create chaos and layers. So here comes that rain. Okay, well, I'm going to lose daylight soon, so hopefully you can still hear me. Next is anytime that you can incorporate something other than rocks. This was a root that I dug up from when I was digging this hole, and because it was a root, this offshoot came around here and it ran underneath and it fused, and I want to shove some stuff in here to see how well that does. And I've got these mondo grasses that, according to the internet, should be able to grow. Oh my gosh, it's hailing. Ugh, this weather is awful. Should be able to be grown in hydroponics. I'm tucking these in the corners here, that way they can stand up straight. Got the roots tucked into my pea gravel. And look at that. I'm gonna group the black mondo grass by planting some outside the liner as well. And it's easier to add dirt from the front. So what I do to get dirt all the way in the bottom is put the roots where they're gonna go, and I lean it forward, and I add a little bit of dirt to the backside, and then I fold it back up. And now, all that dirt on the backside is the blaze side. Spill that guy in front. A little bit more in front. Sweet. Gosh, look at that. How good is that? Super good. I don't know about you, if you don't have your gardening knee pads, and who are you really? I feel like these are gonna grow in really well. A little thin right now, but I do feel like they're gonna grow quite a bit. So yeah, 3 should be enough. So even though these are just 3 really small bunches of mondo grass, they create enough chaos to draw your eyes away from the line And that plus the monograss that's on the inside in that log, like you do not see the edge anymore, even though technically, you know, you can see the plastic in there. If you're really looking, plastic, but it's not what you focus on. It's not what your eyes are drawn to. You're drawn to the spidery looking black monograss. That is so wicked cool. I really hope the monograss in the water survives. These three are outside of the pond liner in dirt, so they should be fine. This is on the outside in dirt, that should be fine. I took a chunk of this blue ornamental grass and shoved it over there where my wetland filter is, but just a small piece in case it doesn't survive, but it should, because I have some over there that has been there since like October, November, and it's doing really well, and it's currently in March, so yeah. There we go. Up against the pond liner, far away from the pond liner, up against the pond liner, pocket in between. Up against the pond liner, far away from the pond liner, up against the pond liner, pocket in between. Don't create a border, create pockets. Piece of wood to distract our eyes, some plants inside to create chaos, and oof, that was so good. This is a fun one. I already did it, but I'm gonna show you. I had this ground cover. When I dug it all out, this was all in a circle, right? It was the perimeter of the pot. And I ripped it in the middle and just unfolded it to be one long stretch. And there's the roots. So I just am tucking the roots up against the edge of the pond liner and dangling this ground cover over the edge. So you can see, before I put this here, plastic liner, all exposed plastic liner, but you take this ground cover and you overlap it, tuck some of this over, and I want some of it to overhang into the water because this will grow, it'll sprout roots and give me some overhang into the water. Oh my goodness, where'd the liner go? It disappeared. And then I can come in and take a boulder. Doesn't have to be perfect, I just shove it in like that, right? Boom, and I'll put some soil in there. It has a little bit more to grow into, but ultimately, you know, check that out. I just took almost 3 feet worth of liner and made it disappear like magic. Or the other consideration that I have is I don't want too tall of plants in the front that would block my view to see the pond. These grasses, they only get to about 12 inches tall, so I don't mind them being in the front because they do the spill thing that I like, that I want them to do. But then they don't get so tall that they'll get in the way. And I've got this big clump, this big chonker to do next. I chop that one off. Nice thin one I can use somewhere else. Now this one is thinner. I get to find some smaller rocks because I already buried this step, but I want to put a rock right here, a rock right here, and a rock right here. So 3 smaller rocks it is, coming right up. In that space. A little bit there. And you know when you were kids and you would fall and scratch your knee and you would say, rub some dirt on it? Well, whenever you put rocks together, I rub some dirt in the cracks. Makes them look like they've been there forever. So that's what this grass looks like. We got a couple of rocks. And I just basically took this big old lump of grass, shoved it up against this side here. And I made sure not to raise the dirt high enough that it would spill over into the pond if it rains really hard. So the dirt is lower than that. But then I pushed it up against there. Then I found 3 rocks to fill in the spaces. And then I shoved dirt in the gaps in between the rocks, and look at that. Like, the rocks look like they've been buried. They look like they've been there forever. The grass looks like it's growing out of it. Nice little berm. And then where's the edge of the pond? I don't know, man. Do you know? You've got distractions, chaos. All right, what are my rules? Layers and chaos, man. Layers and chaos. You can't see the edge over there. I can't see the liner over there. That looks pretty awesome. All right, now it's getting dark, so losing daylight. The next thing I want to talk about doing is the idea of pulling the eyes out away from the pond a bit. So this is the same spot that I've been working in. You've got the black mondo grass, you've got a planting shelf that I'll put something in the pea gravel there. You've got this decorative ornamental bluegrass here, and I've got more of the ornamental bluegrass that I think would work really well here or here somehow. But I want to draw the eyes out and away from the edge of the pond. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and tuck this guy here and wrap it around this rock. Then I want to get some type of barrier. Oh, that fits nicely. So I'm going to try and tuck that guy in. I don't want it to be resting on top of the bricks because that's not natural. There's no reason why man-laid bricks would fall underneath a rock that existed before. But if I tuck it down the side, and that kind of makes it look like it was buried there. And if that looks good, but I need to fill backspace a little bit. I don't ever want my roots to be exposed to air pockets. So I always try to put enough dirt in the back so that the roots, even though it might not be compacted or whatever, I just don't want there to be air pockets. So somebody. Ignore the mud. It is gross, but yeah, that works. I'm gonna just frazzle dazzle this a little bit. And with how heavy it's been raining, that'll rinse off the next good rain. But now the eyes are drawn out, right? So it kind of looks like an outcropping of plants and grasses and what have you. It makes it look a lot more like a natural edge of the body of water. You don't really know where the pond edge is. You've got this mondo grass, you have this same bluegrass, so you have 2 clumps of bluegrass, 2 clumps of bluegrass, black mondo grass in the middle, but they're not symmetrical, they're not the same size, they're not it's not 2 boom boom, if that makes sense. And yeah, so there's a little bit of chaos, a little bit of layering, kind of gives it a rock garden look. The rock's sticking out. There's a rock right there, a rock over here, there's a rock right here, if you would believe it. Whereas before, that rock that's right here looks so out of place before I put the grasses in here, because it's basically just set on top of the side of the pond. So that just goes to show how impactful of a difference layering plants makes. So it's dark. It's time for bed probably. Yeah, it's not great. I'm gonna have to finish this all tomorrow. Here I am applying a slight twist to the plant pocket technique that I referenced earlier. I'm filling this space with a coral bell plant with deep purple foliage, and instead of using 3 rocks to create a horseshoe pocket, I'm just using 1 rock on either side, and I will keep them spaced a few inches apart to create a gap between the rocks. Then for some additional visual interest, I added a few small shoots of creeping Jenny all around the coral bell that once its light yellowy green leaves take off, it should provide an awesome color contrast underneath the dark purple leaves of the coral bell. Now this seems like the appropriate time to highlight how to approach the placement of some of the biggest rocks and hardscape materials around the pond. Now if you look at where my 4 or 5 biggest rocks are around my pond, you've got one in the middle and 1 or 2 on either of the sides. And it's really important that you don't use up all your biggest rocks in the same section of the pond on accident. Otherwise, it will start to look like a map of the USA's lower 48 states. I spread out my biggest boulders and logs to where I wanted them around the pond before I even started any of the detail work, and then I used the medium and the smaller size stuff to build around the biggest rocks to connect between them. Now, I didn't set any of my bigger boulders on the back side of the pond because when I tried that out, I noticed that with the retaining wall right there, it didn't seem realistic that someone would have set a brick wall behind a large stone like that. So I used that large log across the back of the pond instead. Now this also means that I have more capacity behind the pond for plants. Say less. Now I'm relocating one of the favorite shade-loving plants that I have called a silver heart brunera. It's a perennial that comes up early in the spring and it throws out a ton of little blue flowers over those broad, fuzzy, silvery leaves. Now, I have some other very specific plants in mind that I want to put in the rest of that stretch behind the pond that I don't have in my possession just yet, so those will have to come in an update video later on. Now, here in this spot, I'm going to be adding a little bit more of that ground cover. I am keeping this particular section a little bit lower profile because I'm making this into a viewing spot that you can walk right up to the corner of the pond. You'll see me bring up some stepping stones right up to the edge of the pond, as well as pulling out a little bit of a beach area with the river rock. I also had built in a deep planting pocket on the inside of the pond liner in this corner, so I didn't need to add plants on the outside because I'll be adding marginals later on, maybe some corkscrew rush or watercress. But you'll see me finishing up leveling out these stepping stones here that I got from Lowe's. They're the flagstones that you can buy for like $3.50 a piece and are one of the few things that I spent money on in this entire project as far as the hardscape. Sniff, sniffle. She's so beautiful, folks. There's a part of me that doesn't really believe that I was able to be the one to do this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I was holding myself to a standard of excellence, but still. Now, before I tell you that this is easy for you to do yourself, it was difficult because my brain tried to overcomplicate everything and I hyperfixated and obsessed about every little detail. But it can really be simplified and broken down with just those few simple concepts that I talked about throughout the video. And I can assure you that even if you can't quite visualize what it's going to look like at the end, don't let that stop you from trying out certain techniques or placing things where you want them to go. And don't be afraid to change what you've already done. Feel free and confident to move rocks that have already been placed, try it out in different places, different spots, and before you know it, nature will take over and your beautiful pond artwork will materialize right in front of the hands that you're working with. Now we've reached the point in the video where it's time for you to tell me what you think. Do you have any questions about anything I've done or any feedback that I could have done better? I want to hear about it. So leave a comment and have a wonderful DIY day.